cars now promoted as Trans Ams, sees Wills back with a reworked car, ready to do it all again. Wills and his arch-rival Roger Freeth present an interesting contrast. Freeth emphasising lightweight agility, Wills opting for bulk horsepower. But the contrasts extend much further than that. They begin with the level and type of support. Wills operates part-time with a team of engineers from Tony Marsh's specialist workshop. Freeth works from a garage beneath his suburban flat. His team consists of one man, Greg Bourne. Freeth's approach to race car preparation differs entirely from that of most other competitors. When he took up motorsport full-time, he didn't abandon the scientific attitudes and training that had previously gained him a PhD in astrophysics. The motto, amongst the numerous graphs and charts on the walls of his workshop, sums it all up. The racing car is an inanimate object, therefore it must eventually respond to reason. He remains very much Dr. Freeth. The workshop may be more elaborate, but the approach on Kieran Wills's team is simpler.
In our class, we have 3 races per day, and if you don't finish one of them, you haven't got a very good chance of winning the championship. So to win the championship, one must finish. So the whole car is as simple as possible. It's as basic as possible.
The engine's a 5.5-litre Chev, a cast iron block. The 4-speed Jericho box is heavy, but it's unbreakable. It's got a quick change sprint car diff. The original RX-7 suspension is retained for simplicity, but it has the latest Cosworth Sierra brakes. At 300 k's, you need good ones. The whole thing's bulletproof. It even retains an old-fashioned steering box.
It is a lot heavier than a rack and pinion, but a rack and pinion, if you hit a curb or a jutta bar or something, they bend and they jam. A steering box is a lot more robust.
The obsession with reliability extends to the use of magneto ignition.
We're now in the 90s and everybody runs electronic ignition because they have a bigger spark and they take less power to drive, but the magneto, again, is a reliable piece. The oil pump and the water pump and the fuel pumps, everything's all mechanically driven. There's no belts or anything to knock anything off.
Freeth, on the other hand, has perhaps sacrificed some reliability to save weight.
Well, every season we've got to put a pulley on, you know. All the pulleys, it's just the motor's revving so hard, you know, so quick.
The engine's only 4 litres, but it's an aluminium block Rover V8. It runs through a lightweight Getrag gearbox. The diff is a Speedway Engineering quick change. The original Starlet suspension's retained for its light weight, and with all the weight savings, the car runs relatively light brakes.
The car, the way we've kept it is to keep the car light and nimble, try and take advantage of lightweight rather than go to brute horsepower to try and do the job that some of the other competitors are doing. There are disadvantages with that. You've got to obviously weigh up what you're going to lose in straight line speed against cornering power and braking ability and the overall effect on lap times. So it's really a bit of an experiment. We've got a computer program set up with aerodynamic factors and drag coefficients and so on, where we can monitor changes we make to the car, and we've got a standard sort of measurement set of data for Pukekohe racetrack, and we always compare what we do and what we predict on the computer with what we get so we can refine it further.
The Wills philosophy is the complete opposite of Freeth's.
There's power to weight, and you can run a light car with a small engine or a big car, heavy car with a large engine. So we decided we'd take the gamble and we'd build probably the most powerful engine and the heaviest car, and then work with that configuration. And to date, it's worked really well. Having the heaviest, fastest car, obviously you're going to lose some time on round the corners. And as long as you can beat the guy, he can be slightly quicker than you to the first corner. As long as you're fastest down the straight, he's got a heck of a job to try and pass you.
This is exactly what Freeth's calculations are all about.
We've plotted speed in miles an hour here. We're a bit antiquated in racing. Most people still talk in miles an hour. Speed in miles an hour, and then the length of the straight in feet. Now, the Pukekohe straight is just over 3,000 feet long. If we want to do any measurements, we always measure on a section of track where driving doesn't come into it, so the car is dead straight and it's well out of the braking area at the other end. So we just take a section 3,000 feet long. We've plotted the acceleration of the cars so that the steeper the part of the curve, then the faster the car accelerates. My car is on this bottom curve here, that's the way it was last year. And at the end of the straight, it's accelerated to about 165 miles an hour, sort of halfway between 160 and 170. This year, we're hoping that with the drag coefficient dropped, and we're going to be checking this over the weekend, we're going to pull up to sort of 173 odd miles an hour at Pukekohe, maybe even get over 175. But you can see the problem I've got against the larger powered cars, like Kieran Wills's car, for instance. His car is doing in excess of 180 miles an hour. He's on this curve here. So he accelerates on a much steeper curve and reaches top speed much faster. So really, in terms of performance at Pukekohe, that's probably one of the worst tracks for us. He's got maybe 15 mile an hour top speed on us.
On past records, of course, Roger Freeth is going to be very hard again. He's improved his package. He's a known quantity to us. We know he's improved, so have we. So we still rate ourselves, a better chance than Roger. Even though, saying that, we're not treating him lightly, that's for sure.
No one can take Freeth lightly. His scientific approach is maintained even during competition, with an in-car video recording data from probably the most thorough array of instruments in the business.
The brakes, for instance, every time I touch the brake light here comes on, so immediately we can see in the videotape that we've actuated the brakes, and on here we've got the rear brake line pressure and the front brake line pressure. So if we have a problem at one end of the car with brakes, we can sort it out from these two pressures relative to one another. We've also got suspension movement gauges here. These two black markers move across the gauges as the car tracks through a corner. And if the corner is a particularly bumpy corner, we can see by measuring how far these move across the gauges, and we can also measure body roll and so on.
Freeth certainly has the knowledge, but knowledge isn't necessarily power in motor racing. And Wills may have more than power on his side.
Well, I think the biggest thing with the car, the biggest sole factor is Tony Marsh and his building of the car. Everything we've built here in the workshop, down to the front aluminium hubs. Tony has a lathe, a mill, all the gear. We make all the bits ourselves. The engine is all made here. It's all in-house. Everything on the car is made here. And I think that's a huge advantage when you compare Roger's car, who has a Wilkinshaw engine, Getrag German gearbox in it, all these different parts that he has to put together and then rely on his parts source or people to fit them for him. I think that's our biggest, strongest point is Tony and this workshop being able to build everything in-house here. And the proof of that is last year we entered 10 championship races, got 10 pole positions and won 10 races.
Kieran last year made life particularly difficult for us after he joined the series halfway through. We were very much in a conserve the car mode by that stage, and it wasn't necessary for us to win every race to win the international series that ran here last Christmas. This year Kieran's going to be there right from the beginning, so we have to take a different approach. We've got to try and go out right from the first round at Teretonga and Invercargill, try and win races in those South Island meetings rather than just sort of finish for seconds or thirds. It obviously means it's going to be harder on the car, but there are 18 races in a row, 6 weekends in a row. It's probably one of the hardest race series in the world in terms of just keeping the car going and getting from track to track and making sure it's performing at its optimum.
We won the national championship last year, and of course every man is after us. Now we're number one. No one has protected their title in this class. We've had 3 different title holders in the last 3 years.
Friday, December 7th, and Pukekohe is to be opened for a test day. There's a pre-season non-championship race on Sunday, and for Wills and Freeth, it's the final chance to see if their calculations are going to pay off. Pukekohe's been closed this year for major renovations, and there's some uncertainty about its readiness now. The rain adds a further complication, as little can be achieved on a wet track. Freeth's ready with his new aerodynamic bodywork, and despite the doubts, the Wills team make ready to start the motor. If they don't get a run, at least they'll have heard the sound of thunder. And that was it. The official word came through. No testing today.
Well, of course, it's a bit of a problem. We've got a new car with a lot of completely different settings on a lot of things we haven't run on this track before, so it looks like we've got to learn fast in qualifying. Hopefully it'll give us maybe a slight advantage with the data system in the car. Maybe this is the sort of time when you need to get that feedback really fast so you can improve your lap times for the following session in the races.
Well, it puts our setting up of the car behind. Obviously, we would like to get some laps in with our new shocks and springs today, but now it won't happen.
They got their run the next day in official practice for the pre-season race. The young Kane Scott in Mark Petcher's new Ford Mercer and Don Grindley's new Oldsmobile also threaten. Kieran Wills will be working hard to take the Hansel Sun Valley Series again in '91. And he and Freeth, with their opposing strategies, will determine the future course of Thunder Down Under.
Trans Ams may sound a little more classy, but